Shattering the Racial Divide, America's True Economic Experiment. Thank you all for being here today. I stand before you, humbled and electrified after my recent conversation with Dr. Amanda Smith, a revolutionary thinker whose work is fundamentally reshaping how we understand identity, economics, and unity in America. Dr. Smith isn't just another academic or social commentator. She's a visionary whose frameworks have transformed countless lives, organizations, and communities across our nation. What makes Dr. Smith truly exceptional is her courage to challenge our most sacred narratives about race and identity in America. In a cultural landscape where most voices simply reinforce existing divides, she dares to offer us a path towards genuine healing. Her work has sparked movements of economic empowerment that cross racial lines, created spaces for authentic dialogue where none existed before, and given us language to discuss our shared humanity without erasing our unique experiences. The insights I'm about to share with you stem from our profound conversation. And I must warn you, they might challenge some of your most deeply held assumptions about race, identity, and progress in America. We've been told a story about America, a story that frames our struggles primarily through the lens of race, Black versus white, us versus them, a binary that feels familiar, comfortable, even in its simplicity. But what if that story is incomplete? What if that framework, while capturing important truths, also limits our ability to solve our most pressing problems? This is the provocative question Dr. Smith poses, and her answer is even more provocative. America, she suggests, is not primarily a racial experiment, it's an economic one. Let that sink in for a moment. The real dividing lines in our society, Dr. Smith argues, aren't simply between Black and white, but between those with access to economic opportunity and those without, between those who can build generational wealth and those trapped in cycles of economic insecurity. This isn't to diminish the very real impact of racism. Rather, it's to recognize that many of our racial wounds are inextricably tied to economic systems that have systematically denied opportunity to certain groups while privileging others. Dr. Smith introduces us to a powerful concept, that of being what she calls a Negro hybrid. This isn't just about being Black in America, it's about navigating multiple identities, cultures, and perspectives simultaneously. It's about leveraging the unique vantage point that comes from straddling different worlds. And here's where things get really interesting. She suggests that this hybrid identity, far from being a burden, is actually a superpower. It provides a unique lens through which to view problems, identify opportunities, and create solutions that might be invisible to those with more singular perspectives. Think about it. Throughout history, innovation has often emerged at the intersection of different disciplines, cultures, and ways of thinking. The ability to code switch, to translate between worlds, to see patterns that others miss. These are invaluable skills in our increasingly complex global landscape. But embracing this hybrid identity requires something counterintuitive. It requires us to move beyond seeing ourselves primarily through the lens of race. It requires us to recognize that we are all, first and foremost, members of one human race with shared hopes, dreams, and struggles. This is not about color blindness. It's about color consciousness that doesn't stop at the surface, but goes deeper to recognize our common humanity. Now, let me be clear. This perspective doesn't deny the reality of racism or the unique challenges faced by Black Americans and other marginalized groups. Rather, it suggests that by reframing our understanding of these challenges through an economic lens, we might find more effective solutions. Consider the story of Ashley Sims and her work with Build in Tulsa. Many of you may be familiar with the tragic history of Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma, a thriving Black business district that was destroyed in a horrific act of racial violence in 1921. For decades, this story was told primarily as a story about racism, and it certainly was that. But what Ashley Sims recognized was something profound, that the destruction of Black Wall Street wasn't just an attack on Black bodies, it was an attack on Black economic power, on Black wealth, on Black self determination. And so rather than simply memorializing the tragedy, Sims decided to revive its spirit. Build in Tulsa isn't just another economic development initiative. It's a movement reclaiming the legacy of Black Wall Street by empowering Black entrepreneurs through training, mentorship, investment capital, and community building. Since 2020, one, they've connected over 400 entrepreneurs with $10.5 million in investment capital. They've provided more than 10,000 hours of coaching and fostered collaboration among diverse innovators. What's remarkable about this approach is that it's reclaiming Tulsa's narrative, not just as a tragedy, but as a blueprint for economic empowerment. It's creating pathways for new generations of wealth builders, and it's demonstrating the power of unity over division. This is what Dr. Smith means when she talks about addressing generational curses through economic empowerment. It's not just about acknowledging historical injustices, it's about creating systems and opportunities that enable people to build wealth, access resources, and develop financial literacy across all backgrounds. Or consider Sakina Hoffler, an award winning writer whose work addresses generational trauma experienced by Black Americans. Through poetry like Grieve and Goddess Sings and collaborative theater projects like The Ground on Which We Stand, Hoffler uses creative expression as a vehicle for both personal and collective healing. What makes Hoffler's approach so powerful is that she doesn't just document trauma, she transforms it. Her monologues have won awards for excellence in African American history, and her essays spark dialogue around intersectionality within American society. As a Newark Poet Laureate finalist, Hoffler channels lived experience into art that bridges divides between past pain and future hope. Her impact extends beyond the literary world, encouraging young people and professionals to embrace hybrid identities unapologetically while using creativity as a tool for social change. This creative approach to healing represents another dimension of Dr. Smith's vision, the idea that real progress happens when we come together with unorthodox thinking, moving past divisive narratives toward collective healing as members of one human race. And then there's the Money Tales podcast, dedicated to equipping professionals, including many Black entrepreneurs, with the financial tools needed to overcome systemic barriers. Black professionals have historically faced exclusion from mainstream financial systems due to discriminatory policies and practices that perpetuate wealth gaps. By sharing actionable advice from budgeting basics to advanced investing, the podcast demystifies finance so listeners can build intergenerational wealth regardless of background. Listeners report increased confidence making investment decisions, and several have launched businesses or improved family finances thanks to insights gained. The podcast was launched specifically with inclusion at its core, featuring diverse voices who share both setbacks and successes authentically. It helps close knowledge gaps and empowers families and businesses toward lasting prosperity, reinforcing the economics first approach that Dr. Smith advocates. These three examples, Build in Tulsa, Sakina Hoffler's creative work, and the Money Tales podcast, illustrate a powerful truth. When we focus on economic empowerment, creative expression, and financial literacy, we create pathways for breaking generational cycles that transcend racial divides. This brings us to Dr. Smith's third key insight: healing through unity. The conventional narrative often pits groups against each other in a zero sum game. If one group advances, another must lose. But Dr. Smith challenges this assumption. Real progress, she suggests, happens when we come together at the table with unorthodox thinking, when we recognize that our fates are intertwined, when we understand that the systems that disadvantage some ultimately harm us all. As Maya Angelou once said, we all should know that diversity makes for a rich tapestry, and we must understand that all the threads of the tapestry are equal in value, no matter what their color. This perspective doesn't ask us to ignore our differences or pretend that historical and present day injustices don't exist. Rather, it invites us to see beyond those differences to our shared humanity and common destiny. It asks us to consider what might be possible if we approached our most pressing challenges not as Black Americans or white Americans or Asian Americans or Latino Americans, but as Americans, period, as human beings with a shared stake in creating a more just, equitable, and prosperous society. I'm reminded of a powerful affirmation that resonates with Dr. Smith's message. I am not defined by the limitations others place on me, but by the boundless potential I recognize within myself. This is the essence of embracing a hybrid identity. It's about refusing to be confined by the boxes others create for us. It's about claiming the freedom to define ourselves on our own terms. So, where does this leave us? At a crossroads. We can continue down the path of division, clinging to narratives that keep us trapped in cycles of blame and resentment. Or we can choose a different path, one that acknowledges our wounds while refusing to be defined by them, one that recognizes economic empowerment as the key to healing generational trauma, one that embraces our hybrid identities as sources of strength rather than confusion. I challenge you today to look beyond the comfortable narratives that have shaped your understanding of race and identity in America. Ask yourself, what economic barriers are keeping me or my community from thriving? What hybrid identities do I navigate, and how might they be sources of strength rather than conflict? What would it mean to see myself first as a member of the human race while still honoring my unique cultural heritage? These questions aren't easy. They demand that we examine our most deeply held beliefs. They require us to step outside our comfort zones, but they also offer us a path toward genuine healing and transformation. As you leave this talk today, I urge you to take one concrete step toward economic empowerment, whether that's educating yourself about financial literacy, supporting businesses owned by underrepresented groups, or advocating for economic policies that create opportunity for all. Remember Dr. Smith's powerful words: the real challenge is not just between Black and white. It's about recognizing that we're all part of one human race and that many of our struggles are rooted in economic systems rather than purely racial divides. Our liberation is bound together. Our healing is collective, and our future depends not on doubling down on division, but on finding the courage to see beyond it, to the economic systems that truly shape our destinies, and to the shared humanity that makes us one. Thank you